Okay, we made it to week 2 of Sports Talk on our time. Welcome everybody. Last week we had a great time. Frank Verdecchia and I, Frank, social media columnist with a lot of opinions. Me, I'm just a retired sports writer trying to stay out of his way. But we have a lot to talk about tonight, Frank, and that includes the big news of the day, probably the biggest trade in Steelers history when they acquired Jalen Ramsey, the cornerback, and John Smith, the tight end from the Dolphins for Minka Fitzpatrick. Minka Fitzpatrick, they still got him for a number one draft pick several years ago. Didn't quite play as well as everybody expected him to play last year. Dolphins wanted them back, and the trade happened. I have a couple opinions on how this is going to work out, Frank, but tell me what you think.
I was really stunned by it today. I, I looked at the last 2 years, and Minka hasn't done anything since he was all pro in
Good
2022.
point.
He had one interception in the last 2 seasons, and it was the last game of the year. I think he had one forced fumble. I just looked at the defense. They put him about 20 yards behind the
It
line,
wasn't
and
all his fault. You're right. It wasn't all
how
his
are you
fault.
going to make plays when you're sitting back there like that? And the trade, I mean, I think they got the best of the trade, to be honest with you. I mean, I think with Smith, the tight end, that gives them another receiving option because he's more of a receiving tight end than he is a blocker.
88
And
catches last year.
yeah, and you look at Ramsey too. I mean, Ramsey's only 30. He's 30 years old, but he's 6'1". He's got a proven record. He's a three-time All-Pro. And the secondary, it lifted up some. I don't know if it's enough to get them. It seems like they're going all in. I don't know if that's enough, but they're trying. What's your opinion of?
Well, they're pushing all their chips into the middle of the table, Frank, for the big poker game they're going to start playing, come July, and they did it in a decidedly different Steeler way. The Steelers were not in this off season, and they got 6 guys who played for other teams last year, and these aren't backups. These are guys who are going to play important roles in whatever happens to the Steelers this year. Talking about DK Metcalf, the wide receiver from the Seahawks, was Rogers. Darius Slay, the cornerback who played for the world champion Eagles. You got Ramsey and John Smith from the Dolphins, and then Juan Thornhill, a safety
Yeah,
who played for Kansas City and Cleveland. And people are saying they're probably going to go out and get another wide receiver. I saw today that they may have some interest in Gabe Davis from the Buffalo Bills, who's coming off a meniscus injury, so that might slow that
yeah,
situation down. But the Steelers have been a good team over the years,
yeah.
not a great team, and they went out and they got guys to solidify their secondary, what you really need to do when you're playing Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, every single season, and 2 of those guys in your own division. Now
Well,
the Steelers. Go ahead, Frank. I don't want to
well,
interrupt you.
one of the
Talk
things,
about this.
one of the things that concerns me though a little bit. I know I talked about this, but age is Darius Slay's 34.
Right.
Ramsey, I did talk. He's 30. He's going to be 31. Um, Deshaun Elliott's he's in his late 20s. What are you going to do at free safety now? I mean, I saw that Justin Simmons is still a free agent. Could they
I
be
think
thinking did he sign or
I don't think he did. I think he's available, but I think
he?
they might do. One of the reasons they wanted to get the Ramsey is his versatility. Tomlin likes the fact that he can play in
Yeah,
the slot. He can play outside if they need him to play outside, and he can move to safety. He
sure.
played safety for the Jaguars a couple years ago. He's a great athlete. He played pretty well for the Dolphins, but the Dolphins, just couldn't get along with him. For some reason he
Yeah,
fell out of favor there. And the Steelers like him. The Steelers like all these guys they got, from other teams this year. And we have to, as fans, we have to trust them that they're making the right decision. But this is the same organization, Frank, that made Kenny Pickett a first round draft pick.
well, it's hard to trust that now. I mean,
Yeah,
that's the
but
problem. But this
well,
is Omar Khan. It's not Kevin Colbert. Kevin Colbert he made a lot of poor decisions over his last 5 years
he was
at
less
the helm.
he was less aggressive than Omar has been. Omar's been very aggressive. By he's trading, making this trade today. He's done a lot of different things, and I think he had a good draft. I think Caleb Johnson, a running back, is going to be the starter before midseason and really have a great season and a great Steelers career. I think He's tried to shore up the offensive line, which is where with his draft picks the last
Yeah,
several years, which is where games are won these days. You got to
ab-
protect that Aaron Rodgers. He's 41, right?
absolutely. And it just seems like they're thinking this is Rodgers last year. He's pretty much said it. And he did. He had a decent year last year. Now I know a lot of people like to say, well, he had more yards passing than Josh Allen. I looked this up, and he did. But he also got sacked 40 times. Josh Allen got sacked 14 times, rushed for 531 yards, and scored 12 touchdowns. Rodgers had 107 yards and didn't score any touchdowns. So that matters. He can't,
Well,
he's not going to be able to get out of his own way.
that's the thing. The Steelers were kind of pretty much backed into a corner at quarterback. If they wanted Jalen Fields, they didn't try hard enough to get him. The Jets offered more money. They didn't want the quarterback from the Seahawks. Russell Wilson. What's wrong with me?
Yeah.
You'll be 71. You'll be 71 someday, Frank, and you won't remember things either.
You're retired too, Jerry. Come on.
I know. I should know this stuff. Russell Wilson. They didn't want him back. Fields would have been a good option, I think, but they didn't offer enough money. And at that point, Rodgers was the only quarterback that was available, unless they wanted to, use the other guy quarterback, and that's not what they wanted to do. They didn't like him when he played for the Steelers before, Mason Rudolph, and they like him enough now to be a backup. And you know what? He may have to play this year because Rodgers is 41, going to be 42. No guarantee he's going to play 17 games. But
here's what worries me. I can see training camp first week. Here it is. He's got tingling in his throwing shoulder. So Russell, Aaron Rodgers is sitting on the sideline with a bad shoulder. They're worried he's gonna injure it more, or he's got a pulled hamstring or a tweaked calf muscle. At 41 years old, that stuff happens, and like you said, Mason Rudolph could be the quarterback on week 1 the way Justin Fields was last year.
It could happen, but I think they did a good job in only paying Rodgers $13 million, and you got to give Rodgers credit for taking a little bit of a discount to play because he wants to play. He wants to go out on good terms. He didn't have a good season for the Jets last year. The Jets were horrible, 5-12. He wants to get to have another run in the postseason. Whether the Steelers are better and good enough to make a run in the postseason, I'm not so sure. I think they're probably good enough to win 9-10 games. But they play Kansas City or Baltimore in the playoffs. I think it's going to be the same thing. But again, this is June 30th. Let's see how training camp pans out. Let's see how the season pans out. This is going to be a difficult season, and I don't want to say a make or break season for Mike Tomlin because he has a job for life for the Steelers if he wants it. I think. I don't think.
Look at that. Let me look at that in a different way though. Like T.J. Watt. Schefter today tweeted out that there are a handful of teams that are interested in T.J. Watt. Now, the way they're going, I see them signing him now. They didn't make these moves to not let T.J. go, I don't think.
Yeah, but they want to win. They've made
there's a lot of age
too.
I mean, Cam Hayward's going to be 35. That doesn't mean he can play the way he did last year. That's another issue. Is Patrick Queen made 130 tackles and probably a lot of them were made 5 yards downfield. You got to get these guys at the line of scrimmage. And I still just think the run defense is going to be key. I think if they can't stop the run, then it doesn't matter if Mel Blount and Rod Woodson are back there if you're giving up 5 yards of carry. Right. And that's an issue I see big time right there.
Maybe Ramsey makes them a better defense. Who knows? And maybe the first round draft pick defensive lineman makes them a better against the run. These are all maybes. We don't know what's going to happen.
Oh, absolutely. And one more maybe is this going all in to see if Mike Tomlin. This is my, hey, Mike, we're giving you all the pieces right now, as many as we can. Let's see what you can do. If he doesn't he doesn't win a playoff game or at least doesn't get to the AFC Championship game, do they part ways with Tomlin and go with a younger guy? And now you're like 12 draft picks next year. You get your quarterback and you got a new coach as well. And you still have a lot of pieces.
It depends on how the season goes. If they get into, they just sneak into the playoffs, say at 9-8, and they get blown out in the first round. I think there's a possibility Rooney might, grit his teeth and look in another direction. But if they have a good season, say they're 11-6 and still lose their first playoff game. What if they win the division and still lose their first playoff game?
Yeah, that's.
I think Tomlin with the Steelers has a job for life if he wants it. And I think he does. Like. Yeah, I think he does. But fans are getting restless. Fans don't run the team. Rooney is very patient. Probably his dad was more patient than he is. I think. I don't think his dad would have fired an offensive coordinator in mid-season. I think that I don't think his dad would have fired Mike Tomlin either. And I don't know that Art Rooney is probably one of those guys. He's a lawyer. He talks like a lawyer. Yeah. He's a very reasonable man, and he gives his employees a lot of rope. And he's done that for years. Look at that. 3 coaches since 1969.
Exactly.
I was doing in 1969. I was trying to get the acting. I was trying to get the acting off my face in 1969.
Jesus, I wasn't even born yet, Jerry, in 1969.
Well,
Man,
they've had 3 coaches since then.
yeah.
They've
The
been the
problem is can you get that lucky again?
well, yeah. You probably can't. They've been to a lot of Super
Yeah,
Bowls in those times, right?
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah, and, been to almost
yeah,
8 Super Bowls in those days
yeah.
since
8 Super Bowls.
1969.
Yep.
And they won several of them. So
Yeah.
people are upset with Tomlin, and I think he's a very good coach, and that doesn't seem to matter to his critics that if he got fired in Pittsburgh, that he would automatically get another job, which he would. Maybe his time in Pittsburgh has run its course, but this season coming up is a good
Yeah.
test because, like you said, Omar Khan has given him all the bullets he needs to get things done. Let's see if he can do it.
Absolutely. So let's transition over to a sad note on Saturday was Dave Parker passing. And I just thought, what a shame that is. He is my all time favorite Pirate growing up as a kid. And I thought that he should have been in the Hall of Fame years ago. I mean, he got at least the satisfaction of knowing he's going to be in, but he never will get to sit on that stage. And I think that's just a disservice to him.
Yeah, it's a shame. He retired in 1991, and he was first
Yeah.
on the Hall of Fame ballot, Frank, in 1997. And here we are in 2025, and he finally is
Yeah.
getting in, and he dies a month before the ceremony. It's an incredibly sad story. You feel bad for the guy. His numbers were good. They were
Yeah.
good as almost anybody. 2,700 hits,
Yep.
1,500 RBI. That should be enough to get him in years ago because he didn't knock in any runs after 1991. He was still the same player in 1997
Yeah.
as he was this summer.
Exactly. I mean, I wouldn't call him, I agree he's not a first ballot. He wasn't a first ballot guy. He wasn't even a fifth ballot guy, probably, but he was on the ballot 15 years. You're going to tell me that, Harold Baines is worthy and he's not. And even if you didn't, okay, he doesn't get in 15. 2019, you knew he was, you're a voter and you put Ted Simmons in. If you knew you were going to put Parker in at some point, you know that he's not well. Why not put him in there at a time when he could still get
Well,
up there and speak? I just thought that was so wrong. Just Parker in the 70s. I mean, me and my friends used to practice that throw in the All-Star game in 79 over and over again on the street, watching him bat, that batting stance. Even the way he'd avoid inside pitches, he was cool. It was just everything about his game was cool. And I think he got blackballed by the drug trials.
that hurt him. It definitely hurt
And
him, and
and
maybe it
that was
shouldn't have.
and that was a time when a lot of players were either doing cocaine or amphetamines or doing both at the same time. So I
Two
mean, it's
wrongs
not
don't make a right, Frank. Just because
that's
somebody else gets caught, that
that's
doesn't get caught doing it.
that's true. And I guess when you're the face of the game at the time too, that didn't help.
Yeah, it is a real sad, really a sad story. At least he got in the Pirates Hall of Fame. He got his chance to sit there with
Yes,
the gold jacket a few summers ago, and the Pirates honored him, which they should have. They very honored Barry Bonds too, for that matter.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Yes,
so I think he belonged in the Hall of Fame 10 years ago, and he would have made a nice speech, 10 years ago. But now,
sure.
now his family gets a chance to get up there
Good.
and,
Yeah,
and make a speech on his behalf, and that'll be interesting theater too.
yeah, that'll be nice as well. But well, speaking of the Pirates, though, I mean, how about these last three games?
Well,
The way they beat up on the Mets.
I went down to PNC Park today, and there was a line halfway around the block, people buying World Series tickets.
Oh, I'm sure. Yes. Yeah, I was online today seeing if I could get them already. Yes, you
Yeah,
got it. Yeah.
but 3 in a row against and stumbling Mets, even though the Mets came in the town in first place with one of the best records in baseball, where they scored 30 runs against 4. They put it
30
all
runs.
together. They got
Yeah.
hitting the ball, and their
Yep.
pitching was very good. Over that time, and
Yeah.
Skeens didn't even pitch. He pitches tomorrow night against the Cardinals. Let's see what happens from here on.
Yeah.
The Pirates have played very, very well. I looked this up since June the 6th,
Hmm.
Frank. Since June the 6th, their record is 4 games over 500. 2 games over 500, 12 and 10.
Yeah.
And Don Kelly, only 1 game under 500 for his whole time since he replaced Derek Shelton, who was 12 and 26 when they fired him.
Yeah. Proves
So
it. Proves that coaching matters.
team is playing much better.
Yeah.
They're not going to make the playoffs. They're not even going to contend for a playoff spot this year. But they make the games interesting. Those fans, at PNC Park last weekend had a great time, with the offense the way it was. Let's see what happens now. They're home, for 3 games against the Cardinals, a tough customer. Then they go to Seattle this weekend. The games don't get any easier, but at least they're hitting the ball, which makes it, these 2-1, 3-2 games. It was like watching my grandson's 7-year-old under 17, the way they're hitting the ball.
That's
Because
right.
then the Pirates played a lot of games like that. will he score only 1 or 2 runs. But lately, they've been hitting the ball, and guys like Reynolds is getting hot. Cruz
Yeah.
hit 2 home runs yesterday.
Hell,
Excuse me,
Tommy Pham hit a home run. He's even hitting about 230 right now, and a couple weeks ago he was hitting about 188.
two
And
for a power hit player is like
yeah,
hitting 300 for anybody else.
oh, absolutely. O'Neal Cruz, he hit a home run the other day, and but he just, maybe Kelly benching him or taking him out of that game did something to him. But I still think he's a cancer on this team. I mean, I don't know if he's a bad guy or not. What do I know? But I think walking out to the field, not knowing how many outs there are in a game. Come on, you're a professional
No excuse
baseball
for that.
player. None whatsoever. And they say a lot of times he's trotting out there to center field, and by the time he gets out there, ball's already in, and they're getting ready to play. And this is a guy with a lot of talent, but has about a 10-cent head to work with it though right now. And
Well, the thing about it is that the guy was supposed to be this great phenom with all this talent.
yeah,
I don't know what bothers me most about him as a reporter. He didn't learn the language. Every time he's
yeah,
been in Pittsburgh now for 5 years or so,
yeah,
and every time he talks to the media, he does it through a translator. And a lot of guys do that.
yeah.
I'm sure he can speak English, but he probably doesn't feel comfortable speaking English in a public setting like that. But you wonder, if he would maybe be able to relate better with the fans if he did conduct the interviews without a translator. I don't know. Maybe I'm just nitpicking his stuff, but
It's a good excuse too. Then talking to the media, if you really don't want to be bothered, you just don't
yeah.
speak English. And
And I've spoken to him many times, with the
yeah,
translator. He seems like a nice guy, but he doesn't seem that interested in doing the interviews.
yeah,
And that might be because of the language barrier. That could be a big problem there. But I wouldn't trade the guy. Not now. I mean, the Pirates need hitters,
I don't
and
know.
Cruz is a guy that can hit the ball out of the park, and very few guys on that team can do that.
Mhm.
He has 15 right now, right? That's
Yes,
almost a pace of almost 30, 29 maybe. If he can get hot, in the next
sure.
couple of weeks, he can maybe get 35, and maybe the Pirates can. I don't want to say flirt with 500. Maybe get a little closer to 500 than they are right now. What are they? 15 games under 500 now, 35 and
Yeah,
50. The pitching's been very good. The bullpens, come through. Now, the trade deadline is another thing. We'll probably get into that
yeah.
next week, but that's coming up. But at this
Well,
point, the Pirates are playing entertaining baseball at least.
I'll tell you, a good chip might be McCutcheon to be able to trade at the deadline. The guy's hitting almost 270s. I mean,
Not a
you're
chance.
not going to get much for him, but you might.
Nutting would never do it.
No, $5 million. You get him $5 million next year too. But I give the guy credit at his age that he can still play
Oh
like
yeah,
that.
he still has
Because
a quick bat.
I was looking back at 2010 with the Mariners. They went 61 and 101, and they had Ken Griffey Jr. on that team, and he was only a couple years older than McCutcheon is now, and he was hitting below 200, and he ended up retiring a couple days into June. And that he called it a retirement, but something tells me the Mariners probably said, we don't want to release you, but you're an all-time great, and
Well,
it's time.
with McCutcheon, the fans love him. Number one,
Yeah,
if you trade him, the fans would revolt. Don't you think they would?
there's not many fans there to revolt.
I mean, it's not like a very good PR move that trade
Yeah,
your most popular player, who's also your best hitter.
yeah,
I don't think there's any, and there's not a whole lot of market for a guy at his age either.
yeah,
What are you going to get for him? That's the other thing. But the
yeah,
trade, people are talking about trading Isaiah IKF kind of prolific.
yeah.
Okay, if you trade him, he's hitting pretty well too. Who plays shortstop?
Well,
Don't tell me Jared Triolo. I heard a suggestion that maybe Nick Gonzalez could move the shortstop. Okay, I can buy
yeah.
that. But then who plays second base? Triolo probably.
Well, you look at it this way too, though, Jerry. You're going to finish in last
190.
place with these guys. You might as well get rid of
Well,
some of them and
that's
see
not
if you can
that's
get
not the
some.
way to look at it though, Frank. You got to try to make your
You
team
gotta
better
you
and
gotta build.
win now. You got to
Oh,
win now.
there's
And
no now. It's not always now in baseball though, because I mean you're they're hot right now, but they're gonna fall apart. There's no doubt about
Well,
that.
maybe go far apart, but you got to put out a representative team. Just like the Steelers. Everybody
Yeah,
said the Steelers, should tank so they can draft Arch Manning
yeah,
next year. Well, that's crazy. You play for the season now, for the games now, and you try to win now, whether that's players or whether that's the front office. And again, there's things you can do. I mean, a month from now, if the Pirates are maybe
yeah,
20 games under 500, maybe that's different. But right now, when they're winning and they really don't have another shortstop, you don't
yeah,
trade a guy like him. I could see maybe Brian Hayes, keep Brian Hayes trading
yeah.
him.
Brian
He's hitting a
Reynolds,
little bit
maybe.
better now, and he's a great fielder.
But
You may get something for him.
sometimes
Uh,
you have to think a little. Well, the Pirates, it's always a 5-year plan. With the Steelers, it's never been that way. But I've seen other teams do this plan more of it, and that's why I just think the Steelers, they're going all in this year now. It looks like, but sometimes I think it wouldn't have been bad to lose a season or two
well,
and
I'm
get a
afraid
higher draft pick.
if they trade some of these guys at the deadline next month, they're going to get
Yeah,
some double A prospect who everybody says
yeah,
is a great player, or maybe somebody
yeah.
hitting 15 home runs in Triple A who'll come up here and at 206.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that if you're going to make trades at the deadline, you better make trades that can help this year's team and next year's team with
Yeah,
real
you.
legitimate
Yes.
major
You
league
got
ready
you
ball
got
players.
Paul Skeens. You got Paul Skeens 2 or 3 more seasons at
Right.
most. So you need to get guys. Like I said, I mean, I could talk about that forever, Paul Skeens. But I know we wanted to end here, Jerry. One thing you wanted to talk about, my favorite sport, hockey. Uh, when I watch hockey, Jerry, when Youngblood's on AMC, that's whenever I probably watch hockey.
Well, I'm not a big hockey guy either. I covered several hockey games in my time, but I was very interested in what happened with the draft the other day, where they
Yeah,
drafted 3 18-year-old kids in the first round. Now that tells you that the NHL draft is not like the NFL draft. You don't draft for help, immediate help,
yeah,
like the Steelers did.
hmm
You draft for guys who are going to play on your team, maybe starting in 2027 or 28. But the most interesting thing about the draft was this: the first time second time ever, and the first time since 1984, they drafted
yeah,
3 guys in the first round. And
yeah.
Frank, I bet you can name at least 2 of those guys who the
Oh,
Steelers
absolutely.
drafted in 1984 in the
Oh,
first
I
round.
can I can name Lemieux and I can name Doug Bodger, one of my favorite guys. The guy was crying his eyes out walking out of Civic Arena in 1988, I believe, when they picked up Tom Barrasso. That was a it was
He traded
wasn't
him
a
to the
kind
Sabres
move.
for Tom Barrasso. And
That's right.
Bodger was a decent player, a defenseman when he played in those 5
Yeah.
years in Pittsburgh. But then when they traded him, they made a great trade that led to a
And
Stanley Cup, right?
and you look what they did. They made a trade for a future.
And the
They
third guy,
traded.
yeah, for the future. Yeah, they did make a
Yeah.
trade for the future,
Yeah.
and it worked out. The third guy they drafted that year was a guy named Roger Belanger. I don't remember him, right?
I do not recall of him.
Now he played 44 games his rookie season for the Penguins, but with 8 points.
Okay.
I'm sorry. He retired in 1988, so he really didn't have much of a career. And very sadly, he
Yeah.
died of a heart attack at the age of 45.
Oh man.
Yeah, so
Jeez.
yeah, that it didn't. Maybe that's the thing about the draft, and you never know what's going
Yeah.
to happen.
You don't know.
Bodger worked out.
Yeah.
They got Barrasso for Bodger, and I guess their first round pick that year worked out too, right?
I'd say he was pretty good. He was. Yeah, I
He
think
did.
Mario was all right.
He was a goal scorer, a great player, an owner, and all they had to do was draft him in the first round. The Penguins now, aren't playing so much for next season. I think
No.
they're playing for seasons beyond that, and I'm sure they'll try to win. And their new coach
Yeah.
is going to try and put the best product available, on the team. And they still
Yeah.
got Crosby and Malkin and Letang, and even though those guys, who's the last two latter guys, Malkin and Letang might have lost a step or two over the years,
Yeah.
but Crosby's still a great player. And with those 3 guys, they have made the playoffs. They missed 3 years in a row, if I'm not
Well, it's getting
mistaken.
close to that time where you're going into a new era of Penguin hockey. I mean, I'm not saying Crosby's going to retire a Penguin, but I mean, 38 years old. What do you got left? 2 more seasons.
Well,
So you have to
speaking
start thinking past that.
speaking
But
time, like
yeah, what's
we're
for
way
dinner
past.
tonight, Jerry?
Well, I had dinner first.
Oh
When the Tess made
man.
me my favorite chicken thighs with Italian dressing. They're really, really good.
Oh.
And I decided I was going to go splurge a little bit, and I got the new Mountain Dew Summer
Oh.
Freeze,
Oh,
uh,
geez.
cherry, lemon, raspberry, because knew I needed a good jolt of caffeine to do this podcast.
You were so fired up. You just couldn't stop talking. I mean,
That's
I'm
right.
gonna. You know what I'm gonna have, Jerry? I'm gonna have Ritz cracker with chopped liver. That's what I'm gonna eat today.
You want to diet? You
Well,
want to
no,
diet?
Frankie Five Angels is gonna do it from Godfather 2. I can't believe you did not pick that up. What's wrong with you?
I did. I didn't get it. I'm sorry.
Oh man, what's he say? Can of peas.
Get it? I can't.
So that's a rich.
The old man drank too much wine, right?
That's right. The old man had too much wine. So, well, all
I'm
right,
glad we
Jerry.
got a Godfather reference in for our second show.
Yeah, we always got to get one in every now and then.
Yeah,
We know
absolutely.
enough about it, so that I
Mhm.
think we can do that. But All right, Jerry. Well, I'll let you go for the evening there, so you can get in bed early. I know that you need to tuck in and
Yeah, I'm an
so forth.
old guy, you know, old guy. But and now that I got this Jordan caffeine, I'm feeling good. You know.
Oh, good, excellent.
Hey,
So,
maybe Mountain Dew, and that will be one of our sponsors. Now they showed
oh,
their bottle. Here you go, Mountain Dew people. Look at that.
there you go. We might be set. We'll see by next Monday.
All right.
All right. Take care, Jerry.
All right, Frank. Have a good evening.
You too. See you
Take
later.
care.
Bye.